Hi, I'm Kayl, and I'm a pastor's daughter.
And I'm Eden, and I'm also a pastor's daughter.
And this is Gay Girls, Good God.
Christian content from a queer perspective.
So, obviously, this is our first episode. If you've ever heard this podcast before, run. So, since it's our first episode, we're just going to introduce ourselves, get to know us, although as if everyone watching this one already doesn't.
Hi, Mom.
So my name is Kayl, obviously. I am from South Mississippi. I got my undergrad, or I'm still working on my undergrad, in music education, and I am just currently living my housewife dreams.
My name is Eden. I just finished my undergrad in English, aka barista studies. So I am working as a barista. I live with Kayl, and because we were spending too much time together and we're men, we decided that we should have a podcast.
Well, as everyone does at some point in their lives.
Well, my favorite podcast host, Sarah Marshall, who actually hosts two separate podcasts that I love, once said that she thinks people need to shut up about podcasts being oversaturated because everyone in the world should have a podcast because you need an excuse to talk to your besties.
Exactly, and that's what we're going to do.
Because we never talk. We never talk. We never talk. You know who I have been talking to lately, though? God. You know what?
How is she?
I talk to her in prayer. I pray, but I pray for other people.
Oh, so like who have you been praying for recently?
Recently, I've been praying for anyone who is keeping up with the news a little bit too much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it can be tough. You got to find that balance between, complete what's the word whenever you don't know anything? Oblivious?
Oblivious, not oblivion.
Oblivion. Oh,
Nothingness.
no, not oblivion. And oversaturation, it's not good for you. We're not meant to know all this stuff.
Some of my besties, my oomps, my mutuals have been reposting a lot of news and stuff. And I get that. We want to spread awareness. But it's getting to the point that it's like doomer content. And I'm like, you're giving yourself brainworms. You need to talk to the people you love, talk to the people you care about. Because if you start going too deep, then like you said, the human brain is not meant to comprehend all of the suffering that is going around in the world. Liberalism, what's that quote that's like, it's all just about bearing witness to suffering nowadays?
Oh yeah, I don't know it, but I know what you're talking about.
Me with the whole Bible. It's gonna be you reciting verses. I'm gonna be like, didn't Jesus say something? I don't know.
Did Jesus say something like this?
I just think that you need to find a balance between spreading awareness and making yourself aware, and also focusing on what you can do in the here and now. Otherwise, you're gonna get lost. So I'm praying for y'all.
Absolutely. So for me, I'm praying for more of a local thing. I am praying for all the dogs in my neighborhood right now because I think my neighbor is going to try to kill them.
The crazy neighbor next door.
Okay, so for context.
Hi, crazy neighbor. We know you're watching.
Hi, crazy neighbor. So my neighbor across the street moved out and selling their house. So they have a sign in that yard saying for sale. My neighbor to the right, they moved out. Their house is for rent. The neighbor to the left put up a sign the other day. I was like, I told Sam, are they moving? And then I went and looked at it and it said, keep your dogs off my grass. And I was like, OMG. Girl. And so, of course, I'm a silly, goofy gal. So I went and got a sign. And I went and got a sign from Lowe's.
Yes, you did.
And I put on there, I just wanted a sign too. And I stuck it right beside my mailbox. And I like to think that someone thought it was funny. But anyway, more serious topic. Today, I went out there and I saw the big sign had been replaced by a tinier sign that had a dog and a cross through it. And it said, pesticides in this yard.
Oh, my God.
So my concern is that there's going to be some dog that rolls around and cleans itself and then kaputs.
Well, I guess that's why they put up the sign. To let them, they weren't even like spraying their yard for bugs. They just wanted to kill a dog. The pesticides in the yard,
well,
bitch.
I saw them the other day out there recording a dog. Like they were outside just recording a dog across the street. And I was like, oh my gosh.
The dog starts doing TikTok dances.
Renegade.
Go Scruffy. It's your,
Go Scruffy, rip Scruffy.
So I'm praying for them as well.
Yes, they'll be in our prayers.
Me going, so transition. I'm sure you can tell we're just a little bit spooky. We're covering gothaholics, so sometimes we dress like this anyways. But the theme is intended to be a little bit Halloween-y. It's just this week. Ooh, spooky. So, growing up as pastors' daughters and in the world of Protestants, evangelicals in the United States, we've both had very hot and cold relationships with Halloween.
Yeah.
As queer people, though, it's our Christmas.
Of course.
It's our
We go
Christmas.
crazy for it.
So we thought, given the holiday, given the subject matter, what better than Halloween as our first episode topic?
Absolutely.
The way we're going to structure it is just going to be a little bit of the historical side. I'm going to walk us through the origin of Halloween, and we're going to talk a little bit about the nerdy stuff, get into the historical aspects of it, the way Christianity kind of created, or at least created the foundation of what the holiday is today. And then Kayl, you're going to tell us a little bit about what's going on today?
Yeah, what the youths are doing, what the millennials children are doing, how they're choosing to celebrate or not celebrate Halloween, and just some alternatives that are there.
Alternatives.
Alternatives.
Jumping right into it. Can I tell you about Halloween?
Absolutely.
Okay, so all of this is basically pulled from this 2019 article by Joshua J. Mark from World History Encyclopedia. I was like, I don't know if this is credible. It's actually pretty credible. He's a professor of philosophy at some college, and he writes a lot about Celtic traditions.
Oh, word?
And Halloween, as many of you already know, is in fact based on a Celtic tradition. So, the holiday as we know it now was originally based around a pagan holiday known as Samhain. It's spelled like Samhain, and that's how I was pronouncing it in my head for years.
That's how I saw it in the video, too, and I think the lady in the video pronounced it same name, but...
So we're going to be talking about Samhain.
It's the dark history of jack-o'-lanterns.
Samhain, that kind of does sound like some old man that would go to your church, you know what I mean?
Old man Samhain.
Old man
Samhain.
I can't say that. Tongue twister. Anyway, it's basically a Celtic New Year festival. It means summer's end, kind of literally translated. And the idea is basically that this is the time of year where the veil between the worlds was thinned. As you see in a lot of different cultures celebrate these different things. Like you have Day of the Dead. Yeah. And then we have Samhain. And the idea was that people could return, and everyone who had died that year and hadn't been able to cross over because of unfinished business could also then cross over that day.
So that's like the ghosty deadline?
Yeah.
Word.
Yeah. The wall is thinned, so bitches can break in or break out.
Okay. Oh, or out.
Or out, because if you've been trapped there for the year and you need to get out, girl, it's Samhain, get out. It's Samhain, get out, girl. Good God, girl, get out. So there is actually very little known about all of the traditions that were originally associated with it. And it was a tradition that went on for, centuries, if not millennia. So, of course, those traditions probably evolved over time. But little of it is known because Christians, as always, destroyed a lot of the knowledge by Christianizing the tradition and preventing any pagans or indigenous to the area peoples from practicing it. So all we know now are just a few things that we've discovered from archaeology and the few holdovers that managed to carry through as the holiday was Christianized. For instance, it likely included slaughtering and feasting and, quote, bonfires of livestock.
Bonfires?
Bonfires. So when they would slaughter all of the animals for the harvest, they would then take all of the scraps and the bones and pile it up and set it on fire. And that would be part of the festival. And that eventually became bonfire. So that's where we get the word. Yeah.
Childish Gambino.
Childish Mama.
Bonfire.
As Southern girlies, we love a bonfire.
We love a
bonfire.
So many great memories just like staring into a fire and existential crises. Something about a bonfire.
Girl. Well, there's something so like pagan about it.
Yeah, and and like you understand why like fires were so obviously because they, that's very important to human evolution and civilization, but just something about like staring. There's something mystical about it.
Girl, she's so pretty. until old Sam Hain busts out his acoustic guitar and starts playing Wonderwall. Then the magic is destroyed.
Once again, the white men came in and said,
But what if I
got out a guitar?
Aside from like the bonfires and just slaughtering, there would also be obviously like feasting and general celebration. And the practice of leaving out food for the departed loved ones was potentially 2,000 years old by the time that it was colonized.
Oh wow!
So the connection between like food and treats and the dead was already kind of there vaguely to begin with, but there was definitely this connection to the other world from the beginning. People would also darken their faces. Problematic, I know, but they would darken their faces with soot in order to disguise themselves from spirits that they thought might want to do them harm. Because if someone died because you stole their livestock and they died out in the cold and they were stuck out there all year, and then it was Samhain and they were like, bitch, I'm going to exact revenge before I go over to the other side. You don't want them to recognize you?
Well, that's also doing that is such a guilty, like you're marking yourself as guilty. Like, who are you hiding from?
Yeah.
Who are you hiding from? What's up with the soot?
So I noticed that your face is black.
So, like,
By the way, it's in Ireland, so it's very noticeable. You know what I mean?
so, like, is there something you're hiding?
So what's that? Yeah, I think it generally became a tradition unto itself that everyone would kind of do it.
Oh, okay.
Because it's like you're hiding yourself from any like mischievous spirits or anything, and that practice became known as guising, which is kind of the same word origin where we get disguise.
Word,
Yeah.
okay.
So also from the beginning, we see the idea of like putting on a costume or a disguise, changing your appearance in order to hide from the spirits or to disguise your identity. Another kind of this also later became wearing masks.
Okay.
So as the holiday evolved, before it became full-on costumes and we wore like pumpkins and we dressed up as our favorite porn star or whatever, it was just black soot and then masks, and then it became the modern traditions that we know today. However, by the 12th century, it had been Christianized to All Saints' Day. So... yeah. The Catholic Church loved to celebrate their saints.
Oh, absolutely.
We don't know about this very much. We're Protestant girlies.
Yeah. My dad always called Catholics like they were like polytheists.
Yes.
Because of all their saints.
Yes, my dad would always be like, they don't worship Jesus. They worship
they were
Mother
Mary.
Mary.
They worship Mary.
Well, we don't want to worship no woman.
Not woman.
No woman. Anyways.
Anyway.
They made this All Saints Day because they have other days to celebrate the other individual saints. And they're like, okay, these pagan girlies, they're going crazy on this night. I don't like that. They're hooligans. They're doing blackface, and that's problematic. And we as the Catholic liberals need to... No, not really. But we as the Catholic Church need to put a different holiday in the place. But all the other saints like had their own day, so they're like, what if we just do like All Saints Day? All Saints matter.
All Saints
all
matter.
Saints matter.
I think all the saints.
I think all saints matter. So November 1st, which is when Samhain was celebrated, was made All Saints Day.
Okay.
So the night before,
okay, I know it's just going. Yeah, All Hallows Eve
became All Hallows Eve.
Word.
Hollow, like hollow in the highest, kind of like All Hallows Eve was a way of saying like All Saints or the Holy Ones.
Christians
Eve.
love an Eve.
They love an Eve. They love it. Adam and Eve. Oh,
they hate
it all
Eve.
makes sense.
In that case, they hate an Eve.
Girl, they're making up for it with lost time. Love
Word.
Christmas, but we don't love Mother.
It's
Mama.
everywhere.
Snaps for that.
Snaps for misogyny.
So that became All Hallows Eve, October 31st, and it was the night before because Hallows like religious sins, blah 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 blah. And bitches still went crazy the night before though. That was the problem. Is they were like, we're gonna make this Christian and people will calm down. People didn't calm down.
Their titties are still out.
Their titties were still out and bouncing. Bouncing for All Hallows Eve. I'm still gonna bust it open for St. Peter.
Titties out for St. Peter.
Harambe is my only saint. Saint Harambe. Which was the one that... What was the saint that went to Ireland? Patrick.
Patrick. He drove out the snakes.
He sure did. He Catholicized the whole island. He did.
There was a VeggieTales special on him that I watched.
You love VeggieTales.
We'll get there.
More VeggieTales coming
VeggieTales
later.
to come, don't you
VeggieTales
worry.
coming later. But they were still having fun with the bonfires and things like that because it was still harvest.
Yeah.
So they were still making a celebration out of it. But by the 16th century, the tradition of, quote, souling was established. This was a new thing that kind of came out of the Christianized version of this holiday. Souling, Souling, like a soul. It's not really what it sounds like. It's basically poor people would go around house to house and ask for something called a soul cake, which was like a pastry, a sweet cake from people who had more money than them.
Right.
This was obviously still like very Catholic era. So they would ask for these soul cakes in exchange to pray for their deceased family members who might still be stuck in purgatory.
Oh,
because
Catholic Church again.
Yes, they had the belief that like you were stuck in purgatory and you could only get to heaven like through time and by
or
enough people
indulgences.
Praying for you or paying for you. Girl. Anyways, so they would ask for the cakes. Rich people would give them the cakes, and then they would be like, "I'll pray for y'all." Later, when it became Protestant, they would instead pray for the members of the house themselves, not their deceased family members. But souling still remained intact, and you can see there that's kind of where trick or treating originated from. You go to different houses and you ask like, "Hey, can I have something sweet? I'll like give you something in return." Nowadays, you don't really give someone something in return, but more on that later.
Oh.
From 1845 to 1849, though, all of the displaced Irish from the Irish potato famine, which was really an attempted genocide, came to the United States and brought this tradition to the U.S., though. Up until then, it had just been mainly Quakers dominating the region with their religious, like, holidays and things like that. And their oatmeal. So much oatmeal. The streets were flooded. You can't walk. Oh, my God. But the Irish came in mass and brought this tradition and the holiday with them in the kind of still Catholic tradition that they had rather than the Protestant one. We now also, by this time, had developed folk traditions that go along with it. For instance, the jack-o'-lantern. Because this is like a 200 to 300 year jump, so we're skipping over a lot, but that's one of the main mainstays that had emerged in the time. And the jack-o'-lantern actually emerges from a specific little myth from the Irish folktale of, I think, Stinging Jack or Stingy Jack, depending on who you ask, who was, quote, a clever, drunk, and con man who fooled the devil into banning him from hell, but because of his sinful life, could not enter heaven. After his death, he roamed the world carrying a small lantern made of a turnip with a red-hot ember from hell inside to light his way. Scholars believe this legend evolved from sightings of will-o'-the-wisp, swamp, and marsh gases which glowed in the night in Ireland. On All Hallows' Eve, the Irish hollowed out turnips and carved them with faces, placing a candle inside so that, as they went about souling on the night when the veil between life and death was thinnest, they would be protected from spirits like Seeing Jack.
So I'm going to jump in because I actually saw a video on this.
Please do.
And it was basically this white woman, as always, about our age, talking about...
White women our age.
White men our age, just talking.
No, but...
But she basically told that story but put spooky music over it. She was like, the evil history behind the jack-o'-lantern.
Cue the spooky music, by the way. Go, cue.
And she was like, long ago, this practice called Samhain, because she called it Samhain. Bitch. Anyway, this legend started because during Samhain, the veil between the heaven and hell were lowered, and demonic spirits roamed the land, and so turnips were used to ward off these spirits.
Wait, was this a Christian lady?
Yeah, she was talking about why you shouldn't have a jack-o'-lantern.
Her not even saying the veil between worlds. Her saying the veil between heaven and hell. When the Christian God and Jesus came down, like with the spooky cue spooky music. Okay.
Let's go to the spooky music.
Okay, but honestly, I like the way that have you ever seen like the turnip jack-o'-lanterns?
They're so cool.
If I drop my paper one more time, they are cool.
They're giving Jack Skellington.
Yes, they're like kind of shriveled.
Yeah, it's very shriveled.
We should do those. We did jack-o'-lanterns like regular ones with pumpkins already.
Yes.
Cue picture. But I think we should do the turnips and see how it works out. Mm-hmm.
Just go, like, what would you just go get? A turnip or like an acorn squash? How do you carve out a turnip? I'm thinking turnip root.
I think the same as a pumpkin. It's just small. It's small. And they're red. So when they glow, they're red instead of orange.
That's cool.
It's like blood.
Demonic spirits.
So in the United States, October 31st was often celebrated with souling, etc. But it was never actually like the cultural mainstay that it became until relatively recently. It kind of became just something called Mischief Night, though.
I love that.
Right?
Mischief
We love
Night.
mischief. So, borrowing from a tradition from Guy Fawkes Day, ask me what Guy Fawkes Day is.
What's Guy Fawkes Day?
We don't have time for that, Kayl. We can't get into it. Anyway, so insist that I tell you what Guy Fawkes Day is.
Please tell me what Guy Fawkes Day is.
Okay, since you insist. So, I only know about this because of my British literature class.
Shout out British literature.
Shout out British literature. Dr. Lears, you are so weird and one of the best professors I ever have. I love you.
No, you're watching.
Yeah. Hey, I love you, girl. Guy Fawkes Day. Basically in 1605, there was something called the Gunpowder Plot. Ask me what that is.
What's the Gunpowder Plot?
So, King James I of England was a Protestant ruler.
Is this King James of the King James Version? Never mind.
I think so. Yes, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
I'll edit that out if it's not. But I think so. Yes, he was a famously Protestant, and he hated the Catholics, so he like let persecution against them happen, and he kind of instigated it too. Anyways, some Catholics were like, "We need to fucking kill the king." So they planned to literally blow him up and a bunch of like other Protestant leaders of the government, but they were found out by this Protestants, and Guy Fawkes, who was one of like the lords who kind of got his name got attached to the whole scandal of like Guy Fawkes found them out, even though he was kind of just like partially related to.
But with a name like that,
yeah. So the crisis was averted, and basically then it was celebrated every year. In I think November 5th. but it basically just became a like beat up the Catholics day because they were like, Guy Fawkes Day, fuck you Catholics, you thought you could kill our king and you couldn't. So they would just go around and deface Catholic people's property.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
I don't know who to root for in that situation.
Tragic story. The two worst people you know are fighting.
Protestants and Catholics.
Yes.
Literally all of Western civilization.
Right? So that just kind of got abstracted. And on Mischief Night, everyone's property was fair game. So everyone's property got
Mischief Night.
It's Mischief Night. Everybody's getting their shit defaced because it was like that was November 1st. All Saints Day was November 1st or November 5th. All Saints Day was November 1st. All Hallows Eve was October 31st. So it all kind of got pulled together.
They just trash at the city.
They're just trashing shit. Yeah, you know kids.
Yeah.
You know kids. So, however, in 1912, our queen forever, Mrs. Krebs in 1912 in Arkansas, a little town in Arkansas, had a party with costumes and music and all sorts of stuff in order to distract the local kids because she was tired of Mischief Night. She was like, if we tire them out and we give them a place to go and a thing to do, then like it'll all be okay. Honestly,
She was a cool aunt.
cool, and also queen for that. Like the idea of like crime is not because of a moral failing, it's because
These kids had nothing. They need to release their wiggles.
they need to release their wiggles. That's the idea of like boys and girls clubs and like social programs.
And recess.
Recess. Mrs. Krebs, shout out.
Shout out, Mrs. Krabs.
Halloween is a socialist day. It's known. Anyway, it failed.
Word.
But 2 years later, she tried again with a bigger band, costume contest, the works, and it worked. Bitch. News spread, and it kind of spread out throughout the United States and Canada. It became a big thing. All sorts of cities were throwing parties to distract from Mischief Night. But then in the 1950s is when the holiday as we know it now really began to emerge with trick-or-treating. This kind of also was part of the holdover from Guy Fawkes Day, the vandalism. In the 1950s, we saw trick-or-treating happen because people were wearing their costumes as this modern version of guising. People were going from door to door asking for things as this modern version of souling. And because we're American, we're like, we'll beat you up if I don't get you what you want. They would say trick-or-treat because the trick was, we'll deface your property if you don't give us something sweet.
Nice.
So homeowners, homeowners would answer the door and there would be little goblins there and they'd be like, trick-or-treat. And they would always have...
That makes it terrifying.
Yes,
Like, if I don't have candy, they're gonna
we have to have candy. They would give them the candy, and they would be like, "You're safe, bitch."
Yes,
a little
like an Iron Man costume. You're safe,
bitch. Like it's too much. So there's little trick or treat, and then it just from there got more and more commercialized. You know, as everything did after the 1950s, and it got turned into like the whatever. Capitalism media. Yeah. Now it's the big thing we know today. So it began as this pagan festival, which had like deep cultural ties. These things kind of naturally emerged from their mixing with religion. Christians destroyed this like indigenous tradition and knowledge, unfortunately, but we still see a lot of those holdovers in the way we celebrate and even like think of the holiday today. Because even if it's still like this perverted capitalist version of a holiday, as all of our holidays are now, it's still like, if we're like, ooh, spooky, we're still contemplating and thinking about the dead and like the afterlife and like the border between them. We're still like, you know, giving candy out to strangers. It's an opportunity to dwell on the macabre in a celebratory fashion.
Yeah,
and so it's kind of like, even I think this is a theme that will emerge, especially as we do like historical things and other holidays, is it's like as Christianity and by extent colonialism tries to like control and clamp down anything cultural, it's just going to slip through its fingers. It's like water. It's going to find ways to adapt and transmute itself into Christianity, into capitalism, whatever it needs to be. So that's Halloween.
That's
Halloween as it was.
Yes.
And before we jump into our next segment, we need to take a break to hear from our sponsor.
From our sponsors.
Hi, today's episode is brought to you by the Catholic Church circa 1605. Do you mourn the loss of your loved ones? Do you constantly lie awake at night wondering whether or not they've made it to the other world? It's okay. Just give us some fucking money and we'll make sure that you can rest easy at night. Welcome back. Thank you so much to our sponsors. We love you.
So jumping back into Halloween, Bringing it to the present and sort of a little bit back, especially starting in the 1980s, there was something called the Satanic Panic, in which everyone got really freaked out about the things that their children were being exposed to. And Halloween did not go unscathed from that drama. And because Christians are like really weird about anything that differs from their idea of like life and death, very, very cut and clear. And Halloween is not, because again, the origins are kind of like that veil. And so, of course, all of the moms were immediately like, do y'all know the origins of this holiday? It's pagan holiday. That's what I heard a lot. It was like the pagan holiday.
The word pagan, Christians love to just throw out the word pagan. That's like jihad.
Yeah.
Islamic jihad. Pagan. Like they just, these buzzwords, it's like, ooh.
That's the real spook.
Yeah, it's like, it doesn't speak for itself.
Yeah, my parents were okay with Halloween. Like I said, Christians were, it's very divisive. So you were either super okay with Halloween, you were kind of okay with Halloween, or you were just completely against Halloween. My parents were in the middle. We went trick-or-treating every year, but we didn't do like big trick-or-treating. We mostly did the church stuff, which I'll talk about in a second.
That's cute. My parents were also kind of in the middle. I remember like when I was a little kid and we lived in a neighborhood before we moved out to the woods. I'm a country girl, y'all. I remember going trick-or-treating. I wore like a little Spider-Man costume. I remember being absolutely indignant because we got back to the house and my dad was like, I gotta test the candy for poison. And I was like, there's no poison. You just want to eat my candy.
Well, and see, like
I was
on
doing
that
investigative
topic,
journalism.
like one of the ways that like some parents tried to stop that. I mean, there was a few cases. I think there's very limited cases of like things actually being snuck into children's candy. But that's one of the things that they were like, Halloween, like, you know, invites evil and like watch out for your children. And I mean, like there are some scary like aspects, like there are a lot of things that happen on Halloween that are scary, but for the most part, it's just like kids being kids. And so one of the things that Christians did to kind of reclaim the holiday was something called a hell house, also known as a judgment house. Lots of different things. Are you familiar with these?
You've talked to me about them before, and I remember hearing about them in like where I went, but I was never too intimately familiar with them.
So around October, people like usually youth groups will put them on for other youth groups or for like, you know, youth aged people. And it'll usually take you through a story. This is like a really loose definition, and there's a lot of different variants of the types. It would take you through a story. Sometimes it would be post-apocalyptic.
Post-apocalypse.
Post-apop tropica.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage, Post-apocalypse.
Or like tribulation era, or like sometimes we're like Christian, because you know Christians love to be oppressed.
Tribulation era. Tribulation era. Christians love to be oppressed. They love to be oppressed.
So it usually ended with like, and sometimes there would be like, you know, drunk driving kids or something like that. But anyway, people would die in it.
Thank God.
And it would take you through like the people who went to heaven and the people who went through hell. And the thing about Charles Tweedy, my father, Reverend Charles Tweedy,
said the thing about Charles
is he was bald, and so it was perfect to paint his face red to be the devil. And so he always played the devil in these things. And you would think this might have some lasting impacts on their children.
Mommy, why is Dad sending people to hell? That's his job, sweetie.
And they were actually like really scary. Like I remember I went. This one was called a Judgment House, and it was a walkthrough. And like the hell was always really scary. And I mean, I guess that was the point because it is a Halloween substitute, like a substitute for haunted houses, I guess.
Who is that theologian that was like, my philosophy is like, if I could just hang someone by a thread over hell for 10 minutes to show them what it was, then everyone would be saved.
I don't know. My only familiarity with like hell philosophy is when C.S. Lewis was like, people in hell could be shown the gates of heaven, and so be like, nah, I'm good.
Shout out to C.S. Lewis. We love you, C.S. Lewis.
We do love you,
We
C.S.
love you.
Lewis.
You are one of our favorite authors. I know you're Christian, but that's okay.
And I hope you and Tolkien are doing well with your gay life together.
Yes, I hope that hell is great, and I hope that you're choosing to stay there with your gay lover.
So for more child-friendly things, so like the scary aspect to apply to like, you know, young adults, like teenagers, that was sort of like the hell houses. People do like, you know, scary like hell house lock-ins and stuff like that. But then for the younger kids, a big thing would be like fall festivals or trunk or treating. For trunk or treating, they would always, at least at the church that I grew up going to when I was younger, they would do like, you would have to pick a Bible story or pick a virtue, and that would be like your trunk theme. And so you'd still be decorating, you would still dress up like the characters, but you couldn't like dress up as anything super secular or scary when you came to these events. And there'd be candy, and again, it's just like a trick-or-treating substitute for the families who are like, no, our child will not be exposed to the demonic nature of Halloween. So
going to a trunk or treat in just like visceral, gory zombie costume.
I remember
blood, your dick out, like everything.
Trunk or treat with your
Like
dick out.
spewing blood.
I remember so for
Trunk or
like
treating
mine,
with your dick out.
immediately arrested for good reason.
For good reason, baby.
For
good reason.
So I remember for me one year, I was going as Cleopatra for Halloween because that was on sale at Walmart.
A Mississippi love story.
Exactly. And so whenever I went to trunk or treating, it obviously became like Pharaoh's wife.
Girl,
Mm-hmm.
No,
I was
that's
Esther. Maybe it was
interesting.
Esther. I used one of those
Esther,
people.
she needs an episode. She
And
serves
Esther
cunt.
and Deborah.
Deborah,
We will go over the women.
we must go over Bible Women, a
Bible
series,
Women.
a mini series.
You know who I love? Miriam, because that bitch loved to run her mouth.
That bitch loved that. She was a gossip. Ooh,
Yes.
Miriam. So you had this Cleopatra costume, but at trunk or treating, it morphed into
Yes.
Like so that what
that
would
was a
other
duality.
costumes be?
So like I think the same year my brother did like a Roman soldier, and he was a
Okay.
Roman guard, like from the crucifixion
Okay.
when he went. There were some people who did like Jesus was obviously one. Angels, not the devil though.
People dressing up as Jesus is still so funny to me.
My dad
I'm-
also played Jesus and stuff.
Someone being like, "Oh, me? I'm the Son of Christ. I am Jesus in the flesh."
Come to save the souls of all.
That's cunt.
Absolutely, the confidence you have to have.
Also, like, it's always someone who just wants to show off their abs. Mm-hmm. I'm God.
So yeah, trunk or treats really turned into more of like a nativity scene recreation instead of like a fun spooky fall activity.
Mm-hmm.
And then there would also be fall festivals, which is more just your basic like bobbing for apples,
That's valid.
hay rides.
I love a fall festival.
hayride.
I love a hayride.
And there'd always be bonfire at the end.
Bonfire.
Fire, as
That's
we've learned.
one tradition that stayed.
Yes, and so I want to play a video. You can talk
Please
while I
do.
pull up the video.
Please do. Riffing, holding time over. We're pulling up the video.
You can cut all this, by the way, or you can keep it.
I'm not cutting it, bitch.
Word. Oh God, my fingers are so stubby and sweaty. They're not stubby though. I play the piano.
So I'm still not over the idea of hell houses.
And it's like for hell houses for me, looking back on it with like my new outlook on Christianity, it's just another scare tactic. And
Of course.
And for me, as y'all will quickly learn, fear is like my main motivator in things. And so like there was truly some like scarring that went on there because like it was scary. Like it was loud. It was like sounds of wailing, people screaming, blood.
That is scarring.
gore, and like it was scary.
Talk about scarring, girl. I've been picking up my acne lately.
Oh, another thing about Halloween is a lot of people, the moral high ground that they will take is being like, you wouldn't celebrate Halloween if you have put your hand on the back and cast out demons in the name of Jesus. You wouldn't be celebrating Halloween.
What?
Implying, of course, they have done this, and that is
Yeah.
why they know that it's not something you should mess with.
Oh my God. I love the idea. We gotta talk about demons. Can we talk about demons?
We can talk about demons,
Can we talk
of
about
course.
Mama? Demons? Protestant? Okay, when Catholics do it, it's kind of cunt because it's like
Absolutely.
y'all have the gemstones and the stained glass, and it's like I can imagine
Catholics want to be pagan so bad.
in the Catholics in the Catholic cinematic universe, I can see demons existing within the logic of that series.
Mm-hmm.
In the Protestant cinematic universe, there are no demons. Girl, there's backwoods cannibals. There's incest. There's embezzlement and fraud. Shout out to the Catholics.
Nepotism.
But there's no demons. What demon?
Demons aren't doing it like they used to.
What demon is hanging out in like a high school gym with folding chairs that someone calls a church? You know what I mean?
I don't know. My grandfather actually had a similar experience because I spent a lot of time at the church at night, but with either my grandfather or my father, and it would get spooky. And like churches are just
Churches
generally
are always spooky. When no one's there, a church is horrifying. When no one's there at night, a church, mama. You
so
better run for the
spooky.
hills.
I think there's a poem. I think Edgar Allan Poe wrote a poem about spending the night in a church once, or someone.
I'm sure
there's
he
a lot.
did.
There's a lot of stuff on it. This is the one I wanted to show.
For Halloween, right?
I'll put it up on the
I'm gonna
screen.
be the Little Mermaid, the marine spirit. That's what you're gonna be, a water spirit.
Over a mermaid
You're
costume.
gonna change your identity for one night. Open doors and gateways and portals. Now the devil owned legal rights.
The devil
because you
owned
opened the
legal
door.
rights because you
wanna
dressed up like a
little
mermaid
area.
for Halloween.
Legal rights.
But the devil coming out with a contract with the little girl dressed as a little mermaid saying, I now have legal rights to you.
Her being like, no. He's like, please. Also, if I'm a little kid and I'm hearing the weird Pastor Al, who looks at me funny in the lunch line up there being like, you're inviting a water spirit into you. You're changing your identity. I'm like, oh my God, is that easy? I can be a water spirit? You better work, Pastor Al. Sign me up, bitch.
You dressing up like a fluffy haired femboy being like, I'm ready.
No estrogen, no nothing. Okay.
No estrogen, no nothing.
Okay, devil. If the devil came down in a powdered wig, as I believe he would have, and he rolled out a contract, he said, sign here for titties. I would say, girl.
Never pick up a pen faster.
Here's my John Hand clit.
So yeah, that's the big thing. Jesus Ween was another thing. A big movement.
Jesus Wiener?
Jesus Ween. And then I saw another one that's like, are you following Jesus?
Jesus Ween Mary when she's tired of Jesus latching onto her nipple.
Jesus Ween.
Ween.
But so yeah, that's sort of what Halloween looks like now for Christians. The people who are against it are very, very, very much against it and they think it like really, truly is. And that's mostly like a fundamental or charismatic Christian where they really, do believe in like spirits now. Those are the people who are more like intense about like spiritual warfare. They're the ones who are saying you are opening doors when you do that. Stay away from all of it.
There is this weird thing that I know it's not just a Christian thing, but Christianity is what we know, so I'll speak to that.
Yeah, our lens.
Whereas like Christians, they always, the way they talk about other people and other people's morals and other people's actions, it's like they refuse to engage with the idea, or it like they can't even comprehend the idea. They're like, they don't believe in the devil and in God. So when they see like Lil Nas X doing like giving the devil a lap dance or whatever, they're like, you're inspired, blah, 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 blah. It's like, does it not cross your mind that like that's just aesthetics to people?
Yeah.
They're like when people put on a Buzz Lightyear costume and parade around the, the neighborhood participating in an anti-Catholic tradition. Good on you, by the way. Like they're not in any way interacting with their religion. It's this privilege that it's always the way that power aligns itself. It's like men, whiteness, cis-normativity, heteronormativity, Christianity, all of this stuff. It never has to stop for a moment to decenter itself in the world. It has lived its life with the whole world catering to it. So it can't stop for a moment to think that anything is not in the way that
the way that I think about that is like the more and more you learn about Christians, you're like, no shit, they believe that the universe revolved around Earth.
Right.
Like
right. That is such a good way to put it,
yeah.
bitch. Which like other people did too, and it makes sense. But like
yeah, but for Christians, but they were the ones who were mostly being like, no.
They were killing bitches because not only that, they considered it heresy to say otherwise. I think is the important part. Because it wasn't just about like scientific fact, blah, 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 blah. They're like, no, to say that is to undermine the idea that we are the most important thing in the universe.
Yeah.
And thus it is wrong because
Yes.
the truth has to be that first and whatever else follows second.
And the way that a lot of Christians that are trying to be influencers will phrase that now as being like, you do what you want. But this is me and my convictions and what God told me. And as soon as you say what God told me, it's like, no matter what you say, you can't argue with me.
No.
Because
God said.
G-O-D.
God said.
God
girl,
told me.
God told me. Also, we were talking about this the other day. It's always like, they always love to say the reverse of like, you can like do what you want and you can have your rules, but I'll do mine.
As for me and my house,
we will serve. Cunt. Like, it's always like this weird idea of like anyone who isn't as pure as me, like I'm gonna like give them a little bit of side eye and be like, okay, whatever. But anyone who's more pure than me, I'm gonna be like, y'all are doing too much. Like everyone needs to do their own thing. Like blah blah blah. But the second one person goes further than you, then you're the one that starts acting like morals high ground. This idea of like everyone has their own belief that only comes out when they're the ones celebrating Halloween and being looked down on by the others, et cetera, et cetera.
It's very much just conforming it to like whatever your own personal convictions are. And it's kind of weird because like who's giving everyone their own convictions if all the convictions are different?
Oh. It's like we were saying, it's modern Christians, evangelical Christians, they want all of the moral superiority with having moral absolutes, but they don't want to commit to the actual philosophical idea of moral absolutes. So it's like, bitch, what do you like?
What do
you
you
can't have your
want?
cake and eat it too. You can eat my ass though. You can eat my
Anytime.
ass, baby.
So yeah, that's Halloween.
Ooh.
I hope that you have been scared. And also, I feel like we should say, if you are a Christian watching this, that is cool. As long as you're not the kind of Christian that we're... as long as you adhere to our rules of being a good person, just literally...
As long as you don't rub it in our face.
Because some of the best people I know are Christians. Caroline Rhett, shout out Caroline Rhett.
Yeah.
There's a way to find that balance, because I think religion can be a great thing.
If by some miracle, like, a Christian is watching to this point, I think that if they are cool enough to be watching to this point,
They're cool.
then they're cool, and also they know what we're talking about.
Absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
if you are watching this, first of all, it means you're a friend. High five people watching.
Hi, friends.
Second of all, if you're Christian, hi Caroline. It means like you understand that in the large part, the Christian movement is full of people who would co-opt the language and idea and the power structure that Christianity exists at within society. They leverage it for their own personal like ends and gains.
Yes, and-
or in the very least, they aren't developed enough to distinguish between those two things.
And I think most of the Christians that like I've associated with are informed and educated enough to be able to still hold a critical lens to their own belief system, which I think is the most important thing. Like even if you are atheist or follow another religion, being able to hold a critical lens to your own system of beliefs is a very important tool to have.
Bitch, you delivering a philosophical treatise then? And that's girl philosophy.
And that's girl philosophy. Speaking of philosophy, this book right here.
This book right here. And a shout out to the Bible.
Bible.
Shout out to the fucking Bible. Are you going to read our verse of the day?
I'm gonna read a verse of the day. Sometimes
Verse
the
of the
verse of the
day.
day will be serious. I chose like more silly, spooky way to go about it. This is upside down. By the way, I
Is an
chose
upside
a
down
more
Bible
spooky
like an
one.
upside down cross?
I don't know. I think it just means like you can't read.
So let's say if you read a Bible upside down, does that summon Satan?
I think it means you're dyslexic. Okay, so is this the right one? It's Revelation 3:16. But this one is more goofy because I think the Bible is full of the goofiest little verses, and I also like to pick and choose from the Bible, but I only choose the silly, goofy stuff.
ContraPoints, Natalie Wynn, mother, once said that she thinks a lot of people misinterpret the Bible because a lot of it is sarcastic.
Yeah. Especially, I think Paul is the funniest person because he'll just talk in circls.
Also, such a cunt.
Such a cunt.
He's like, did y'all really think that's what I meant? Did y'all really think that when I said, like, may it never be, may grace abound, like, bitch, may it never be?
just
That's
don't
cunty.
dead name Paul.
Don't dead name Paul. Don't dead name Paul.
Okay, so this is Revelation 3:16. And it starts off by saying, so because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, this is the part that's important. Part B, I am going to vomit you out of my mouth.
Bitch.
God eating a bite of toast that's been sitting on the counter just going, just vomiting out like
God.
rays of glory.
I did not know that was the verse you were gonna. What the fuck?
Because you are lukewarm and neither hot nor cold, I am going to vomit you out of my mouth. Revelation 3:16.
God got a stomach ache.
You weren't a good Christian. You made my tummy hurt.
You know what makes me fucking sick? Bitches,
lukewarm Christian.
Bitch, be hot or cold. Just pick a choose.
Decide.
Like, geez, like I
Can't
can
be both.
He's like, if you're gonna be cold, fine. I get it. Just be fucking freezing or
Once
be frozen.
again, God loves a binary.
What, Mama? God loves a binary, and God. That's so gay of him. And that's so gay of him. Like, all the time, God is gay.
And God is gay all the time.
Thanks for listening.
Bless y'all. Yeah. Okay. Do you worry that while you're walking outside at night that you will see a turnip?